Hello, everyone. Welcome to Grow Your Strength. Today, I'm going to present a new program, and it's a little different because we're going to do the breathing in the chair as an alternative. If you prefer to do the face down breathing like I usually show, please do. But I did have a request to show some exercises for someone who can't get down easily to the floor. So I decided to do most of the warm-up in standing, and let's see how this goes. Have some fun with it today. All right, so as an alternative to that breathing position, if you choose the chair, just sitting comfortably in a chair, and you can put your hands at your sides, and it's the same idea as when you have your face down breathing. You're going to try and breathe nice and deep and create some intra-abdominal expansion. Filling the belly, the sides, and the back. As you inhale, you feel some expansion. As you exhale and the air comes out, everything just recoils. Want to calm the nervous system down before we get into some movement. Our body's always vacillating through ups and downs in our nervous system. Take some time to do some long exhales, and that will help just relax the tension you might be holding. After your next breath cycle, you can come to standing, and we'll work on some slow flexion and extension from standing. So I'm going to take my feet a little wider than hip width apart and just gently fold forward, little bend in my knees to a place that I feel comfortable. Don't have to push extremes. And then coming up into extension, I'm going to turn my palms out, look up to the roof, and gently let the weight of my head open up my neck and put my upper back into some slight extension. And then just going through cycles of this in standing, a little change from our flexion extension on the floor. As you roll forward, you can turn your palms in. And as you slowly roll through your back, you turn your palms out. Just take your time to go through this 2 more times. Beautiful. Feels different doing it from standing. So here I'm going to show lateral weight shift. You do not have to grab a dowel, but for those that might need to be doing this next to a chair or a piece of furniture or a dowel, you've got that as an option. So in lateral weight shift, you just want to open up the toes, get a little sense of what's going on balance-wise. When you stand on one foot, things light up through the ankle, the knee, and the hip to stay stable. And we're going to take it to our ankle mobility in standing. So there will be a little bit of balance. So onto one foot, and you can start to open up the toes, spread the toes, and give yourself about 3 to 5 ankle movements where you're pointing the toes away and pulling the toes up. We'll switch side to side, and just that reminder that you can hang on to something if you want to. Otherwise, your base leg has a slight bend in the knee, and you're going through your movements Focusing on something will help, as well as focusing on what you're doing with your ankle. So here I'm trying to turn the sole of my foot in and out. Switching sides. Get that good strong base position with your foot. Slight bend in the knee. Good. This is just a practice of holding balance while you're doing other movements. This is like a task of balance. So please don't get frustrated if you're feeling like a little wobbly. Week 1 of the program, I'm sure we'll see some improvement over time. Okay, and then finishing with some circles. Okay, I'm going to split my stance so one foot's in front of the other and just weight shift forward and back a few times. So now I'm asking a different task of my balance as I sit back. Be mindful that you're not arching your back. Just weight shift forward into the front foot and then transfer the weight to the back foot. Getting some sense of connection with your feet. And then coming to stillness for a sec, we'll take the arms across the chest and we'll work on some slow rotations from the hips up. So just take your time to turn and look over your shoulder. If you had a belt buckle that would be pointing forward, you're rotating away from your hips and adding a little neck mobility with looking at something behind you. As you go through these moves, just continue to focus on some nice deep breathing. And I added in a little arm pump here, so let's just get the shoulders working, get the elbows back. Just a few times, and then we'll finish with shoulder cars. So take your hands into an open finger position, and you're just slowly bringing your arms up to where your shoulders will kind of let them go today. Create a little movement map. And of course, the tendency is to want to arch back. You want to keep your posture stacked over your hips and bring your arms all the way around. We can lace them up the small of the back today. Take a moment there and just loosen up the neck by looking side to side a few times. Back to center, and then let's rewind. Slowly bringing the arms back around. Challenge yourself to go slow and just really feel out where you can move through. Now, if there is any pain, please don't move through pain. All right. So now we'll switch the front foot and go back to that weight shift of trying to find what it feels like to be on the front foot and the back foot, opening up the toes. Float the weight over your foot. The harder the surface you're on, the more connected, easier it is to be on the floor. So keep that in mind with these balance exercises. The squishier the mat or the carpet is, the harder it's going to be. So here's our rotations again, away from that belt buckle. Visually looking at something behind you, get a little bit more out of that rotation. Back to a little bit of the arm pump, getting those elbows back. Smiling optional. And then one more of the shoulder cars. Okay, so spread those fingers. Keep your posture stacked over your feet. Nice deep breathing. It's doing great. Hands are going to go up the small of the back. You just take a moment there to look to the left, ease through your neck movement, look to the right, back to center, and then slowly rewind. Next up, I'm going to take us through some extension reaches. With extension reaches, your feet can be hip width or wider. I'm just going to sit back gently into your hips. I'm keeping my fingers open, and then I lift my heels and look to touch the roof. After you do this a few times, you get a sense of what the demand is. If you're feeling unstable, and again, take your feet a little wider. If it feels too easy, then bring them back to hip width. Slowly lift the heels, use your calves. As you come up, see if you can hold it for a moment. Get that little bit of control in standing. Remember, this is a practice. And now I'm going to take us to single leg balance reaches. So I'll do this next to my fireplace, and I'm going to pull out my chair in a second to show you how you can use the chair for feedback. If you don't feel like you need that something to reach to, then just do it into the air. We'll go slowly, about 3 times per side. My fan keeps blowing. Nothing like a live show, you guys. Okay, balance reaches. All right, here we go. So to the chair and back up. Some cues you might use. Push your heel to the wall behind you. Watch that you're not locking out this knee that you're standing on, okay? So slight bend in that knee. Take your time. If you have the control, go slow out. Get a little feedback that you're level and come slowly back in. Nice work. We'll transition to some body weight squats, which just means feet hip width or wider, toes straighter, turned out. You want to pull yourself down into a depth that you feel comfortable with without changing the posture through your back. In the squats, you can kind of think of the hips going down and the knees going forward. If you want to add breath, you're inhaling down, exhaling back up. This is different than the hinge. Now we'll transition to hinge. The hips go back. The knees bend, but try not to go too forward with the knees. It's the hips back to that wall behind you cue. I'm going through about 5 more hinges wherever you're at. Next up, I'm going to take us to some walking with a couple of options. I'm going to show the walking first, and then you can decide if you're going to put a loop band on. So coming into the slight hinge position, you take a step out to the side, and about the distance of your yoga mat, 2 or 3 passes. Now, this is working the lateral hip. You want to try and not hike the hip as you step. So hips, pelvis are level. I like the add of the arms to try and work this sort of reciprocal patterning of our bodies. If you have one of these loop bands, this is a great way to make it a little harder, add that resistance. And if you don't, then you'll still get a lot of benefit from lateral walking. And maybe you could consider getting one when you feel ready, okay? Now I'll show a couple passes in slow motion. As I step out, I don't want to collapse this foot, right? I want to keep some tension on the band so that I'm really adding some resistance to my hips. As I step together, I'm not bringing them so close that there's no resistance. So I'm keeping a little constant tension as I go through. And after those passes, you might feel like a little warmth in your hips. That's a good thing. You want to feel it in through here and definitely not in your back. Now we can change the movement to forward and backward walking. You sit back, and as you step back, right foot back, left foot back, I'm just adding my reciprocal arms, and then I'm coming forward. My feet are at a width that I'm still working quite hard to not let the knees collapse. It's also good and helpful for the foot placement, because if the knee collapses, often the hip collapses above the knee and then the foot collapses below the knee. So it's always more complex than just one thing. This is an exercise that, particularly with a band, you might get a little hip burn. And, you know, burn is kind of a weird word, but warmth, heat, like you've worked. Next up, we're going to do some banded squats. So you can keep the band on if you have it on. And as you pull yourself down into the squat depth, think about pushing your knees into the band. If you don't have a band or you don't feel comfortable with a squat, you could have a little safety there by squatting to the edge of a chair. Okay, so that's another option for you to touch and go off of a chair. Pulling yourself down into a banded squat, just take a little time to think about pushing evenly on both sides and then coming up nice and even through that. Looks good, everyone. Okay, so I'm going to take us into 3 exercises. And the first one is a combination of a core exercise and a push-up. So it starts with a position where your hands are a little closer together, feet are a little wider, and you're going to cross over and tap one shoulder. So I'll show you, here's my hands closer together, feet a little wider. Take one hand off, cross the shoulder, other hand off, cross the shoulder. Now I go wider and I give myself one push-up. Okay? So it's a cross tap, adjust the hands, and a push-up. If you were going to do this from the floor, that would be 55% of your body weight, quite hard, okay? So learning to do it off of an elevated surface is where I suggest. For the cross taps, the wider your feet are and the closer your hands are, okay, the easier this is going to be. So when you take a hand off, you want to be mindful that you're not collapsing in through your body. It's not leaning in. Your body's like a plank, little activation through the hips. That should be good. Trying to get a number that feels okay. So could be 3, could be 5. Some of you could be a bit more than that. That looks great though. So that's a core exercise combined with a push-up, also somewhat of a core exercise. We've got it. So that's exercise 1. Exercise 2 is a squat and press, possibly with load. So I'm looking to take a weight that I can press overhead and squat, stop, press, stop, up to 6 per side. Feet hip width or wider, find that depth of the squat that you want and just press. Now, if your shoulder didn't feel good with the pressing overhead, you could just squat holding the weight here. Right? Just make it a squat and not do the second part of it, which is that press. Excellent. We'll be going through this set again. So nearing the end of both sides, ask yourself if you picked the right weight, if you were going at a good speed. So one way to make things harder is to go a little slower with the same weight. And if you have access to a dumbbell or a kettlebell that's a little heavier, you might want to try it with the next round. Excellent job. Third exercise is going to go back to the extension reaches. So that's one that we've already done once in the warm-up. You're going to lift. See if you can hold 3, 2, 1, and drop it down. Up to 6 of these. Lift. 3, 2, 1, and drop it down. And yes, I did have to play with the adjustment of my feet. If you're having trouble with this, with balance, you could come over to a wall, come up, hold onto the wall, 3, 2, 1, and down. So that would be an option if you were at home and you wanted a little bit of help from the wall. Reach, 3, 2, 1, down. Okay, so week 1, I'm going to test what I call a minute of squats. And you could use a chair or you could just do it in the air. And I'm going to set you up for any sort of squat that pace that you want. It could be a touch and go on the chair or just a squat here. You could load it if you want. I know some of you are pretty strong with doing a loaded squat. I'm going to start us in about 10 seconds. And for 1 minute, I want you to try and pace yourself and count how many squats you can do. So it's kind of just a little fun way to test where you're at week 1. All right, so here we go. I'm going to do the touch and go off the chair. Pay attention to your principles of pulling yourself down evenly, knees wide. Inhaling as you pull down, exhale as you come up. If you're feeling tired, you can have a little rest at the top. It's a 1 minute chair squat test of sorts. We're halfway there. Don't compromise your form or your breath. Good. 10 more seconds. And break. Okay. Make a note of how many you did and whether you used weight. Okay. That's our 1 minute test. We'll go back to our banded walks and then through these one more time before we move on. Guess what? The chair test, squat test is just once in week 1. Okay, so put the band back on. Another opportunity to have some movement, dynamic through your hips, a slight hip hinge. Okay, get those arms involved. Those elbows back. Breathe. Step to the side. Connect with your foot. 2 to 3 passes of your yoga mat. Keeping those hips level. And it's okay to have a little bit of this. Resetting for the forward and backward. Feet wide enough, there's a little tension on the band. Again, band, no band, it's all good. Last one for me, and we'll move on to the cross taps and the push-ups. So, just as a review, the closer your hands are and the wider your feet are, the easier this cross tap is going to be. You don't want there to be a shift in your torso. A little connection through your hips, a little tightening of the hips, and then go wider with the hands. Give me a push-up. Hands come back close. Cross tap. Both sides, wider, and push-up. On the floor, same principles apply. Hands closer together, feet wide. Push-up. Now, how many you can do, it's just so individual. So again, a good idea to just take a mental note, week 1 of this program. How many are you doing? If any of you would actually like this program printed, please email me at at sheilahamilton.ca. I'm happy to share the program with you. To the squat and press. Weight to the shoulder. I know this is a weight that's manageable for me. Connect with my feet for my squat and press. You never want to press a weight that puts you into a vulnerable position. Overhead, if you're into your neck, something doesn't feel quite right, go lighter, go with a ball, make a fist. Good, so up to 6 reps. If you're getting fatigued and you're like, I'm feeling that a little bit in a weird way, then just switch it up. Listen to your body. Excellent. Okay, so I'm going to break this up with our next set with a balance exercise. This one is balanced shoulder cars, and it's just one arm at a time. So you come onto a single leg balance, take the opposite arm, and you're just trying to bring your opposite arm into a single arm circle. Now, if this felt like it was too hard for you, you could tap the back toe down and track your balance a little bit with that back toe. Continue the same way we did in warm-up, taking the hand up the small of the back. Here's where it gets really tricky. Did you want to look to the left and the right? And then return all the way back. So we're just playing with movements while we're working on the connection through our foot. Okay, switching to the other side. Slight bend in the base knee, one arm at a time, tracking that back toe down if you need to. Oh yeah, good stuff. Reverse lunge, body weight is next. So we'll take 3 per side, step back, get connected with those toes, drop the back knee a little or a lot, and then step forward. See how that feels. You want to get some bend or extension in your back toes. The front knee can come forward a bit or stay over your ankle, whatever feels better. Try 3 per side. The second part of this exercise, we're going to take a stretchy band and just practice some diagonal pulls. One arm up, one arm down, about 6 of these. Got my palms up. The tension when I open the band, I feel like I'm working my shoulders, but I'm not into a shrug. I don't feel any tension through my elbow or wrist. That doesn't feel right. Okay, so watch that the wrists aren't bent. Nice straight open palms. There you go. After 6, switch the top arm. Now we'll combine these 2 moves, the reverse lunge and the band pull. So the top arm is your front leg. Step back, open the band, and come forward. I'll show you a few different angles. So as I step back, I've got my right foot forward. I step back with my left. It's my right arm that stays high. Up to 6 per side. And again, it doesn't matter how low you go. It could just be a slight knee bend and then work that shoulder pattern. After 6, switch sides. Make sure that tension's not getting too much for you. Open up. Feel those shoulder blades working in behind. I really like what I'm seeing, which is knee is tracking right over the middle of the foot, so there's no knee wandering in or out. Seems nice and solid as you go through those reps. Okay, next up, we'll continue with the stretchy band in a knees and squeeze exercise. And if you don't have a stretchy band that works for this, I'll show you a dumbbell option in a moment. So I sit back into a hinge. I row my elbows to the sides and then have my arms straight and stand up into a postural plank. So it's like a hip hinge, a row, and then stand up tall. Okay? Now, up to about 10 of these. If it's feeling too easy, walk your hands a little closer to their feet. But do, at the top, do use your shoulders to center your shoulders. So there's usually a bit of tension. I don't want to allow my shoulders to be pulled down with that band. So I'm working to gain that posture. Okay, so everybody taking the class right now has a band option, but you can do this with dumbbells, hinge back, row, and stand up, right? So next time we'll go through this again in a moment. If you wanted to, if you didn't find the band option working for you, or you don't have a band that works for you, that would be good. All right. All right, so palms up, check the tension. This is a reverse lunge. You step back and right arm up, right foot forward. Take your time. This is a complex move. It's requiring what I would say is a lot of motor control, so just practice. How far can you get back with your lunge? And then open on that diagonal. Looking strong. Switching sides. Okay, and we'll go back through the knees and squeeze. Option to use your band again, or pick up some dumbbells. Feet hip width or so, maybe just a little wider. Make sure that feels okay as you sit your hips back for your row. Then come up to posture. Hips back, shoulder blades come together. I think I've called this one a double whammy for your posture. Get those nice postural muscles working between the shoulder blades and then stand up tall. Good. Up to 10 of these. A row and a stand being one. I'm going to move us on after this to double arm shoulder series, starting with a lateral fly. Now, if you're new to this, you'll want to be doing this with fists or open hands, so just light fists or open hands. I've chosen double 3-pound dumbbells, which are quite light, but give you an idea of how some of these moves flow with load. So elbows come to 90 degrees, pull back down. As you're going through this, be mindful of your posture, that you haven't gone into what I'd call an extended posture where your backs of your kneecaps are pushed back, right? Softness in the knees, work up, work down. Option 2, opening like external rotation, like you were serving some platters, okay? If the weights you're holding don't feel good on your shoulders doing this, put them down, do this with open palms. Up to 10 of these moves. Because the weights are light, we've got a little bit of freedom here. We can control some of the end ranges. Third move, bent over, opening into a fly position, pinching your shoulder blades together and pulling the weights back. Now, because these are 3 pounds, I've got a lot of control in my end range. If you don't have this control, consider going lighter, up to 10 of those. Feel free to take that 10 number as a suggestion only, okay? 2 more to go. Here is the front fly with the elbows at 90 degrees, making sure you stay out of the neck. Now, because this is sort of a continuous build, not getting a lot of break, feel free to put the weights down, squeeze the shoulder blades together, and feel like you're not into your neck, right? So you want to be conscious of sort of a centered shoulder joint if that cue works for you. Okay, now the last one, I'm going to put the weights down and go with my overhead press, just working my range. If you wanted to keep the weights, that would be cool, but please don't fatigue out any of the muscles in your neck or upper shoulders. We don't want to create an issue in our effort to get stronger. Okay, so that's exercise 1 of our last strength set. Exercise 2 is a farmer's carry where we take a weight and walk forward and backward, but instead of holding the weight on one side, I'd like you to try transferring the weight every step or two. So here I go with taking a weight, and as I transfer, I can feel some changes of what's going on in through my midsection and through my core. I took this variation of the exercise from listening to a podcast with Dr. Andrew Huberman and Pavel Tutselin, the CEO of Strong First. And I've been doing farmer's carries for a while where I just carry the weight on one side or at the shoulder, but I like this option, switching from side to side. In time, getting more comfortable and confident with the weight that you're switching and the distance that you're going is something we can all work on. Okay, so that's exercise 2. And the last one is a curtsy lunge. And with the curtsy lunge, you have the option of doing it body weight or with load. I'm going to grab some load right away here today and go through some options. About 6 curtsy lunges per side. You take the foot back and across and you dip down that knee and come back up to posture. When you get control of your balance, you can dip down a little or a lot and then come back up. You want to stay square to the wall in front of you, and when you do that, you're getting a lot of nice depth to the hips and then coming out of some hip rotation as you stand back up. So about 6 per side. I'll just even myself out here. Get about 3. That looks great, everyone. Good stuff. Okay, so now let's go back through our shoulder series. Again, nice and light. Feel free to just do this with body weight. Work the up, work the down. As you come up, remember to stay out of the neck. Rest of the posture is dialed in, nice deep breathing. Pull down. Moving to external rotation. It's nice and easy. Feeling the shoulder blades come together. Modifying the rep range based on how this is feeling for you. No, about 6 felt enough for me. Hip hinge, reverse fly, staying out of the neck, squeezing those shoulder blades together, thinking about what kind of control you have through the shoulder blades, the end range. Oh, it always feels good. Front fly, opening the elbows to 90 degrees. Can you get the elbows to touch, getting a nice stretch through the back of the shoulders? And then retract the shoulder blades. No break this time. Here I go. I'll try it with weights. And if you were doing body weight, I think 10 would be a nice rep range, but with the weights, you need to modify that down based on your strength abilities. Grow your strength is what I like to say. Good stuff. Now, as we go back to the traveling farmer's carry, if you didn't feel like a lot of core work as you were transferring the weight, it's probably because the weight it wasn't heavy enough. So I had a 15-pound kettlebell, and I've jumped to kilograms now, but this is a 10-kilogram kettlebell, so it's a little bit more significant as I transfer the weight, feeling through my feet, being careful with the transfer. Nice deep breathing. I'm going to go 2 times through my space. One thing about carrying something heavy is it just forces you to be in good posture. That looks great. Carefully putting your weights down and deciding whether you're going to load your curtsy lunge, 6 per side. It could just be a toe tap, or it could be a little deeper. Find your posture back in standing. If you want to add breath, I'd suggest you try an inhale as you step back and down, and an exhale as you come up. So I'd like to finish the class with a get up or a variation of a get up. I was inspired to work on this by a client in my in-person class who can't do a get up and doesn't easily get up and down from the floor, although he does get up and down from the floor. If you know a get up, please just go ahead and do a full get up. I'm going to show you what I set up for this fellow to work on a portion of the get up, which is just putting some pillows down so that he doesn't have to go all the way to the floor. And you're going to see part of the get up with this option. So just splitting the stance, using some balance support, and coming all the way down to the floor, and then trying to lighten up and come up. So you're just tracking yourself up and down with a little balance support. And if you need to use the hands and the dowel to come up, you do. So that is a way to start building a portion of Sheila's favorite exercise. One thing you'll notice if you work with me over time is that I secretly am trying to get everybody to do a get up well. And I like what I'm seeing right now. Taking some time to set yourself up. Same arm up as knee that's bent. And as you roll to your elbow, you're just making sure you're not shrugged. Coming up and through. And here's the portion that I just showed with the chair, right? So working on coming up. We didn't step forward. We just were working the straight up and down. Get up a day. Good for your health. Never going to lose the ability to get up and down from the floor. And if kind of full circle to the start of the class and why I did a lot of stuff standing, if you're struggling with getting up and down from the floor for various reasons, you got to start thinking about how you can build little bits of a practice back into your life so that you reestablish that movement. Thank you very much for joining me in building a stronger version of yourself with the group today.